I'm Diamond, and I consider myself a high femme, southern coated dandy that loves looking fly and smelling good. Give me big hair, a flowy dress, and a dope ass hat, and you'll have my heart in your hand.
I'm Chance, raised in the deep south, draping myself in makeshift glamour and plotting my escape in heels too big for the Bible Belt. I made it out, made it fashion, and made myself along the way. Now I chase the threads of identity, culture, and the art of becoming.
You ready to chase these thread, Chance?
I'm so ready. Let's go.
Oh my God, I haven't seen you in forever, Chance. What's
I,
going on?
I'm literally a whole new person since the last time we saw each other. Can you believe?
So proud of you. We
You
have
know,
talked about this. We
we
have
certainly
talked
have.
about, you exploring identity. And we've if people go back and look at our past episodes, we met because we both worked retail and I was your boss. And you were one of the first people actually at work that I actually told that I was trans. And it's not that I didn't think anybody knew that I was trans, but I just didn't talk about it to other people. Other people may have known it, but I just
Right,
didn't talk about it because it wasn't no purpose. We were fucking working. Who gives a
for
fuck?
sure.
But a person who I actually confirmed it to was you because you were a career man, you were dope, and I liked you as a person. So let's do what we do. And so yeah.
I that was one of working with you and meeting you was one of like the best, most transformative times in my life, believe it or not. Um, I think, we could get into it. Like you said, we've talked about it for years. When I first was like, I think it's real. I think I can't ignore the voice anymore. I messaged you and I was like, should I take hormones or like, do you think I'm just like going through a phase? And you were like, you'll figure it all out. Just give yourself time. And I also remember, I don't know if you can recall this, but years ago, before you and I even started chasing threads, I was on an episode of Marsha's Plate where I moderated a question and answer session. And this might not even be recorded, but you had offhandedly, we were kind of talking about how I was going to introduce myself. Um, and I was like, yeah, I'm a cis person, but I'm in this space. And I remember you saying, well, cis passing. That that was like, oh, other people can see something here. And then yeah, here we are today.
Yeah, I think it was just because look, listen, I've been in this game for a long time, 30 years, motherfucker. I know my people. And when just based on our conversation and us talking and even the depth of questions that you were asking in regards to yourself, in regards to, just how you were moving through life in regards to your gender, it just let off some green flags. It's like, yo, like I'm seeing something in you just based on your conversation and how you're describing certain things. And while you have not said it, I'm not gonna say it, but
Right.
I was like, because I don't want to lead you into a direction. Because
Yeah.
I'm somebody like that's like, I'm very careful in how I engage with people and their gender.
God forbid you get called a groomer. God forbid.
Yeah, God forbid I'm a groomer. I'm recruiting all the people to the
Recruiting.
trans
Yeah.
agenda.
Another one. Thank you.
Fuck you, Republicans. Moms of Liberty.
Oh God. They're gonna hey, we gotta come back with a bang. Now we'll have people protesting us. At least it'll get us some press, maybe.
Period. So when you said that, I said it offhand, but it was real. It was like, oh, you cis passing child. You might be doing something later, but we don't know. And here we are. I prophesize.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is a conversation for probably another day and maybe even another podcast, but I always knew, but I didn't know that I knew until I was older. And like it even saying that, I'm like, that doesn't make sense. But to other trans people, I'm like, hopefully that does make sense to you. Um, and then by the time I was like, oh shit, like, what am I gonna do about this? I was like this big gay bear, and like it just felt like, and I had this,
Married.
yes, and I still am.
Okay.
Um, But I had this conversation with you actually where, I was scared in those first early steps of me like taking the step, making the change. I was scared to give up the currency I had gained as like a attractive gay man. Um, and I was like, what if I'm like fucking ugly? And then I was like, you know what? I could be a dog brick for the rest of my life. I mean, obviously not, but I could be, and at least I'd be me. You know what I mean?
Amen.
I feel more like myself.
Shout out
Yeah,
to the Brick Girls, baby. Unapologetically
baby,
Brick.
protect the bricks. It is us. We're all doing the work, but the bricks, they're making the room. Okay. You can't build a house without the foundation of bricks. Let's just
Yeah,
say that.
I live.
But yes, I'm so happy to be here. And you are so special to me. I could go into it in a million ways, but you're so special to me. This podcast and our time together is so important to me. I live in Seattle now, where it feels very comfortable and easy to be trans, for lack of a better word. And so I just felt like I'm in a very privileged place right now to get to live out my truth and my dreams. And I wanted to, come on here for other people who are not able to do that and give some people some light and some fun. And yeah, I'm so happy to see you. And I'm so happy to.
Well, I am proud of you. I knew
Thank you.
that eventually, we just have a natural chemistry, of course. And because of that, I was like, well, whatever Chance is going through, I know that eventually it's gonna, it's gonna figure itself out. And so, I just wanted to give you room and let you know that I care for you and you are a friend of mine. And I'm just proud that you moved, you got the fuck up out of the South, you just
Yes.
went somewhere and started a new life and just not just on some transition shit, just on, having the
Everything.
courage, just everything,
Yes.
the courage and doing what I even fucking um
Husband.
husband was, do you want to say
Ray.
great, even the music, just even the
Oh, yes.
exploring, just what y'all are doing. I'm just so proud of y'all because I remember y'all coming to the store and just and
Struggling.
struggling and doing what you're trying to
Yes.
do. So just I'm just proud of y'all and just happy that you are living your truth. And yeah.
Thank you. And now that I'm here, fully realized we're about to go deeper into the threads than we've ever been. We're about to get a seam ripper. We're about to pull the bitches out. I have a new perspective and I got shit to say. So,
And now let me say this, because this motherfucking episode is very trans heavy, and I
yes.
hate chasing threads, so I wouldn't have to talk about this tranny shit.
I was writing all of my stuff out and I was like, Diamond specifically said, chasing threads is for me to get away from the politics. I promise.
Not the
Listen,
politics from trans specific politics. I love
yes,
politics, but I was like, yo, March's Plate is my trans stuff, but because we are introducing Chance as the woman,
right.
I was like, we got to really deep dive into some trans history just on this episode.
Yeah.
But here we go.
So you'll still get the fashion, you'll still get everything. Like Diamond said, this is a trans heavy episode. Send this to your bricks, your dolls, your whoever you need to send it to. We're building a brick and doll army. So let's go.
Period.
Okay, y'all. It is time for our trinket. As just a reminder, a trinket is a deep dive into a detail of fashion and culture that might seem small at first glance, but says something bigger when you look at it a little closer. It might be a garment, a phrase, a moment, or even a person, but it always threads back to the culture that clothes us. Like Diamond and I were just talking about in the intro, my life is basically trans 101 constantly. I'm in my first 2 years of transition, which are like, boot camp basically. So everything is trans in my mind. One of the things that has caught my eye in terms of fashion and transness and culture and everything like that is speaking so much of dolls and bricks, I'm sure you have seen the Protect the Dolls t-shirts that have been making their rounds all over social media and all over runways recently. It's just like a plain white t-shirt and it just says like Protect the Dolls in black like Times New Roman font, very very basic. Like I said, I wanted to talk about this phrase because it's become like a rallying cry that's been shouted in videos and turned into a somewhat of like a trans femme battle cry. And now it's even, like we said, been printed on shirts. Story behind the shirt is it debuted earlier this year at London Fashion Week, where London-based designer Connor Ives closed his fall 2025 show wearing the tee that boldly stated, "Protect the Dolls." It was a clear, intentional political gesture meant to show visible support for trans women, affectionately referred to as dolls in queer circles. And I mean, you've heard the term dolls for whatever.
Forever. I also have my own Protected Dolls t-shirt.
Oh my God, that is so cute.
Isn't that cute? I have it on my Teesprings account. I love that statement. I didn't get it from them, but it's just
Of
something
course not.
that we have
Okay.
that we have said.
Okay, then I am so glad. This is the perfect thing then, because we have so much to talk about. So Ives had said that he had worked on his shirt. He created it like shortly before the show even happened, and he collaborated with one of the trans models on his team, a model named Hunter Pfeiffer. I had actually never heard of her, but she does a lot of work in the fashion circles, I suppose. And he was like purposely trying to be more direct with his political expression, saying that with the reach of fashion, he said you should say it with your chest, a term we've heard a million times. He says it's a direct, visible declaration in the face of rising trans hostility, especially in the US. And he called the tea a thank you to trans women who inspired his career, emphasizing that, like I said, he didn't start out to make like this movement, but mostly just felt like I have trans people in my life that I love. I need to do something about this. After the shirt came out, like I said, it was all over social media. Troye Sivan was wearing it at Coachella. Pedro Pascal was wearing it at his movie premiere. Hader Ackerman and Tilda Swinton were seen in versions of the shirt. And after all these celebrities were seen in it, it was like people, there was so much interest in buying it. And Connor actually said on his Instagram that the shirts were going to be available for pre-order. He said all proceeds generated from the sale of this t-shirt will go directly to Trans Lifeline, a US-based trans-led organization that delivers life-saving services to those who need them most. The hotline connects trans people to a wider community, offering support and resources they need to survive and thrive. Resources like this are now more important than ever, given the hostility and oppression the federal government has adapted towards trans people in America. I would not be where I am without the support I have been given by the dolls. So this is the least I could do to ever say thanks. That all sounds great. I looked into Trans Lifeline. Have you worked with them before, Diamond, or do you know a lot about the Trans Lifeline?
Yeah, Kai Horton is the executive director. I have worked with them before and been in spaces with the previous executive director. I have definitely been in spaces with them.
One of the things when I was researching all this, I was like, let's make sure that the funds are going where they need to go and everything's being allocated correctly. So I did a lot of looking on them and they seem to be amazing, like nothing but good stories and good resources that they're able to give people. So good on Trans Lifeline for partnering with him for this. This happened in April is when they first started being sold for pre-order. And in a month and a half, they had already raised $70,000 for Trans Lifeline, which is great. We love that. Money for the dolls. So the slogan itself, protect the dolls. You just said you love it. I also love it, which I'll talk about in a second. But protect the dolls, it's become a slogan, fundraiser, or and a movement, or at least it wants to be. On the surface, it's a powerful message that we can all get behind. And it's exciting exciting is not a great word, but it is, for lack of a better word, it's exciting to be like a moment in fashion culture and fashion buzz.
Especially coming out of moments where we just had we talked about it. We had that weird ass Balenciaga Bear moment that was rooted in
Oh God. Yeah.
pedophilia and being weird. To have a moment like this that is kind of celebratory and, about protection and about centering, people who are being attacked currently.
So I'm on the exact same page with you. To me, it feels celebratory. It feels correct. I mean, I don't know. To me, it doesn't seem like something that would ruffle my feathers. But upon researching, people really seem to have like an issue with it. This also goes into the whole conversation about fashion-based activism, and there's always a tension in that conversation. What happens when this shirt is just a trend that cis people wear for an aesthetic? When it's like printed cheaply and sold in batches. And I don't believe that the Connor Ives one is being produced unethically, but there are like a ton of knockoffs now, and who knows how they're being sourced, how they're being produced. So that's another added part of this type of thing. And then in that conversation, there's a connection between the throwaway nature of this type of fast fashion and how that echoes the way trans movements and trans bodies are often used as some sort of virtue signaling for cis people. And then we're usually discarded when we're no longer interesting to them, when they can't play with us anymore. But that's like a whole different conversation for another day. Actually, I'm sure you've had that conversation on Marsha's plate multiple times.
Yes.
So refer there for that.
I feel like the problem with having an issue with stuff like this is usually when people are just gaining money and doing nothing for the dolls. I feel like they are doing it the right way if they're saying that the proceeds are going to an organization that's doing the work for the dolls. If you're
And
just
they're showing the receipts.
and showing the receipts that it's happening. So the problem is people always saying, "Well, what if this? What if that?" Capitalism is going to capitalize.
Right.
You can't stop something from being recreated and somebody trying to make money off of it. You can call them out for doing it, but you can't stop that what if. If the initial action is intentionally done to support the girls and the dolls and the trans people and however you want to call it, whatever you want to call them, if they're doing what needs to be done, to me that doesn't make it performative because that's just the action behind it. It's like, yo, we are trying to use our platform to do something that uplift and to help people who are currently being demonized. And so
Right.
as long as you're not just trying to profit off of it, I don't think that that is a negative performance. Everything is a performance.
Right.
I
Because
don't
like
think
at
it's
the end of the
negative.
day, like you're saying, any Tom, Dick, or Harry that's a cis person, if they're wearing the shirt, they spent the money on it. And the money went to the dolls. So like if they are seeing it as a trend, yes, that can be extrapolated into their psychology around trans people in general, but like we got the coin. You know what I mean? Like that's really where it boils down to for me. Um,
And I just don't think that that is necessarily a problem for me. I don't think it's the problem of somebody hopping on a trend because the dolls are being attacked. The
right.
trend is the dolls being attacked. So if you're hopping on a quote unquote trend that is saying protect the dolls, like I don't find that to be problematic. I find it to be problematic if you are hopping on a trend because you don't want to protect the dolls and you or this had nothing. This is not relevant, and you're just doing it just to be like, oh my God, I'm doing something
Mm-hmm.
cool. No, this is relevant to the moment, and if you want to step up and put on a shirt that supports the dolls, then I don't find that to be negative at all. Not to me.
I think so too. It is interesting though, like you said, if it gets people to protect the dolls, that's great. We love that. That's the goal at the end of the day. Some of the criticism within the trans community seems to be about the term the
Doll.
dolls itself. Doll. This term has been part of trans vernacular forever. Like you said, Diamond, you have heard it, ever since you were younger. I believe it comes from the ballroom scene, right? Typically.
Um, it, it's intertwined.
Okay.
The ballroom scene and just queer life in general is a lot of intertwined things. So
Yeah. For me, doll is typically a term of endearment or power or style. I love a doll. Anything that encompasses, I love a doll. I find it to be both an armor and a fantasy. I think for some people, it can be a crown, it can be a cage, or it can be both. It's solidarity, survival, and it's, like we said, sometimes performance. And like much of queer language, like we're talking about, it's deeply full of contradictions, but ever evolving within our community. Like I said, I personally love it. I think it's empowering and aspirational. In my eyes, the dolls are the goddesses within the trans community. And I am someone who is visibly trans in a visibly queer and trans clocky body. But I still call myself a doll because I love that concept of glamour and self construction. That is really, and that's not for everyone, but for me, I love that story of I built myself. I had to build myself like a doll. Of course, everything is contextual. I, when I've started venturing on the apps as a trans woman, every man on there, are you going to be all dolled up for me? Are you going to come over all dolled up? Bitch, no. I hate when a man asks me that, I'm like, kill yourself. But any other time, I love it. But if a straight cis man asks me that, no, ma'am, Miss Pam. But outside of that, I don't find that it's typically triggering, demeaning, or dehumanizing. Some of the issues with the term doll that I've been able to find are that it centers like a super narrow ideal of femininity. So when we think of dolls, we think of Snatched, like Barbies, dolls. I mean, to me, when I think of a doll, I think of a girl that looks like a brat doll, like big eyes, designer clothes, tiny waist, beat for the gods. It's the kind of girl that, you know, gets so much attention as a trans girl and gets booked and gets, you know, all the things. And it usually builds up women, trans girls, women with Eurocentric beauty standards, youth, skinny, passing privilege, those type of things.
Typical Barbie narrative.
Barbie, very Barbie. Again, doll. And this, to me, this is not a critique of dolls because I think you are a doll. I would consider you to be a doll, and I want to be a doll. So, like, I don't think those are bad things. But when we reinforce this idea that the dolls are this specific ideal of trans femininity, are we making that the only narrative that's worth protecting, especially for people who are outside of the community? I think, again, as someone who is non-passing, who lives in a visibly trans body, it does feel oftentimes that because I am not surged out or, you know, smooth skin constantly, I don't get the same. I mean, I live in Seattle, so everybody wants to protect the dolls here, whether you're a doll or a brick. But, you know, it's just not the same when you look the way I do. And I'm white, like I'm a white person, so I have that privilege. If you're disabled, if you are, you know, fat, which I have been many times, I still am, you know, it limits and pushes you out of this doll conversation. And does that then, what's the word? It pushes you out of this doll conversation. And then does that end up conditioning cis people to only see the dolls as worth protecting?
Who is conditioning? Who, when you say conditioning, that's like some psychology shit where you are conditioning the cis people. Who is actually doing the conditioning
So
when you
I
make that
think
question?
that if we as a trans community, as a queer community, but specifically trans, I think there's something to be said for, as with every underrepresented group, they try to make us a monolith. And I think with trans people, if the doll narrative is what's always constantly pushed to the front, if they're getting the eyes, if they're getting the sponsorships, if they're getting, you know, again, the press, the eyes, if they're getting the cis people to see them, are we telling them this is what it means to be a trans woman? And if you're not this, you're not a trans woman, and you don't deserve that same level of protect. You're not in this community in the same way.
I think that there's a lot of conversations happening at one time, and
Hmm.
we are in a sphere of these conversations. The discourse around passing and not passing, the discourse around um, intersectionality, the discourse around representation, because we know that we are not a monolith in any marginalized community. In the same way that the actual Barbie doll has evolved. Think about how the actual Barbie doll, when we first see her, she is white. She is small waist. She is this typical white feminine beauty. But as women and people who are the consumer engage with this doll, people are pushing back and saying, "Hey, why don't we have a bigger doll? Why is Barbie a fucking homemaker doing, housework shit?" When the feminist movement happened in the 70s, we started to see more. After that, we started to see more working class type of Barbies. We started to see Barbie kind of change into different things because people pushed back on what she was representing. So she
Hmm.
becomes this object that starts to represent multiple things. And I think that culturally and on a community-based level, we are having those same conversations.
Hmm.
There was a time in our culture as trans people that passing was our way to safety and survival. So, of course, that passing is going to be the most important. We need to get the best and the most passable breast surgeries. We need to be able
Hmm.
get our vaginas and do all the things to make us look like cis women, the cis women we want to be, and then leave your family and go move somewhere else so people don't know you and just live your truth. It was passing was like at the center of our care. It was
For safety.
for safety.
Yeah.
But as we learn and we evolve, we started to have the shifts in those conversations. Now, I come from the 90s and passing was really really important to the girls in the 90s. And so, I there's an investment in passing that I have, but as somebody whose politics has grown and moved
Hmm.
to another level, I understand the importance of the non-binary movement, of the importance of people saying, "Yo, my womanhood looks like this," in the same way that with the doll, the actual doll, there was black women saying we want a black Barbie and we want her to have our features. We don't want her to
Hmm.
just be Barbie
Dark
painted
skin.
dark
Yeah.
skin. There had to be a pushback. And I think that there are some people now in our community pushing back on some of these things that have been known to be core values of trans people, and they saying, "No, we're not on that passable shit no more." Yes, it doesn't mean you're wrong for wanting to pass. It doesn't mean you're wrong for getting whatever
Exactly.
whatever
Exactly.
surgeries you have. But now our narrative is changing, and we need to make sure that we're making room and making the world safe, not only for you, pretty passable doll, but also the bricky cool
For the
doll
bricks.
who
Yeah.
wants the more edgy, who has a more edgy look, who is okay with looking visibly trans. She should be just as safe. She should not be getting bricks and bottles. She should be able to find jobs. She should be able
Hmm.
to work at Starbucks. She should be able to work at corporate in her truth. Just like you can. You shouldn't just get access to the opportunity just because you pass. And I
Right.
think those kind of conversations that we're having is important, and we need to shift because
I
yeah.
agree with all of that. Do you know what's so interesting and timely about this is um T.S. Madison did an interview, I believe it was last week or the week before, with Bob the Drag Queen on Madison's podcast. It was really, really good. Y'all need to go listen to it. Bob is my all-time favorite winner of Drag Race. He and Maddie together, great combo.
Mhm.
Um, but they were having kind of the flip side of this conversation, or at least I'm going to boil it down to that, where Maddie was saying that because of the political climate we're in now, we're actually, in her words, back to the beginning. And the way that they, being cis heteronormative society, see us are faggots or dykes. That those are the only two ways that they see us now. And so
I have a problem with that, but go ahead.
I was gonna say I think the point that she was, and I know there's a big conversation around her views on being non-binary and her shifting thoughts on that going on right now too. So this might be a clip that came out before that, but I think essentially what she was trying to say was like, it, I don't want to put words in her mouth, but I just feel like that is kind of almost the opposite of what we're saying. Like, instead of growing in this climate and fostering safety and care for our community, it sucks to kind of hear the feedback of, well, actually, everyone just tone it down. We're back to these two things. And I don't think she meant tone it down. Let me also say that. I think what she meant is they're fucking simple. Those people are simple and they're not going to understand us the way we want them to understand us. Because even she said in the clip, she was like, in a perfect world, all of these things. But in the world we're in now, that's where we are. And I just thought that was, like I said, relevant to what we're talking about now. And I was interested in hearing what you kind of thought about that boiling down of our identities.
Listen, I don't agree with that. I understand what she's saying because that always exists. Dumb, ignorant people are gonna think of us as faggots and dykes. Yes, that was in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2010s, the aughts, the where we are now. Yes, there's gonna be ignorant people that dumb us down to that level. No matter what, you and I are gonna be men to them. Yes, that's yeah, of course we know those people exist, but I'm not going to go back and think that we have not advanced. I'm not that we have not. I don't give a fuck what T.S. Madison is talking about. I don't give a fuck what who else have said stuff like that. I don't give a fuck what they talking about. This is not the 90s.
Right.
This is not the 80s. We have lived and advanced to a point where there literally is no going back. Are they trying to fight and do things and put us back in that place? Absolutely, but it's almost trying to get water out of a sponge. You can't go back. We've advanced too much. It's like trying to get black people to go back to slavery. Will they try to go back there? Will they try to go back to those racist ideals and da 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 da? They might try, maybe, but I remember when we were coming out and we not coming out, when we were about to possibly elect Barack Obama. There were people having conversations. We always gonna be niggas to them. Right. He ain't gonna win this election because we always gonna be niggas. They ain't gonna let no black man get in office. There is people who were having that conversation, and that's the same thing. It's like it's not being hopeful. It's just sitting people in those boxes, not having the dream of what could be. Yes.
It's also so easy to forget that the pendulum does, unfortunately or fortunately, always swing back the other way. Like,
yes,
we have to take these steps back to get better. Right.
There's going to be a mountain and there's going to be a valley. We are in a valley. We had a mountain, literally the tipping point on times and all these 10 years from the time, let's say, I want to say 2015, ever since Ogerfeld. I want to say ever since gay marriage was off the table, we got it.
Right.
Then the trans thing, it was like, oh my God, we got the shows, we got the representation, storylines on TV. We have all of these things. It's peak. Now they're gonna be a backlash. We seeing a backlash on the Obama win. Trump is the backlash. That's like, it's going to be a valley. It's going to be a reaction to these things getting advanced. Listen. It was an uptick in the 70s that got us Roe versus Wade to protect women's agency over their bodies. There was an uptick in this liberation in this conversation. I just watched a documentary about the founding of Miss Magazine.
Oh yeah,
and it was amazing. And there was this uptick of wins for women. Win. Look, we're on the valley now. Dobbs reversed. They reversed it. And so we're in a valley now. We got to win shit back. That doesn't, if I sit here and say, yeah, they just think of us as BB homemaker as women, and that what maybe there are some men who are misogynic that just it's just man and woman and no kind of nuance of what we should do in regards to our roles. But
But that's the last person we should be catering to.
who fuck them?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
We're progressing and we're moving forward. So when I think about the dolls, I am thinking about and protecting the dolls. I don't think of us as being just fags and dykes. I don't give a fuck about somebody who thinks like that. That's stupid. I don't care
Mhm.
about if you're narrowing us down to that level, you're already lost.
Beyond lost and like,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'm thinking of us as the nuance, and I want people who want to protect the dolls, all of the dolls. My lesson, my ministry is about protecting all of the dolls, passable, unpassable, wherever you are in the journey. Just starting, even if you ain't started yet, but you might. Maybe the dolls. However,
That's another thing that you actually, another piece of wisdom that you gave me years ago. I had a friend who came out as non-binary. I was very anti non-binary at a time. I have repented. I spent my years in non-binary prison. I understand. But at the time, I had reached out to Diamond and I was like, I just don't get it. Like, just be one or the other. Again, at the time, I didn't know this. But in my mind, it's because I was like, just be a woman, because that's what I am. But anyway, and you said to me, you were like, it doesn't matter what other people are doing on their journey. It doesn't negatively affect us. It can only positively affect us. Say that they don't even say that they're just a, what are they called? Trans setter, where they're just, trying it out. Okay, that gets more, they learned something about their gender. They taught other people about something that opened up more windows for us as trans people. So yeah, another little piece of diamond wisdom there.
Because it doesn't. Even if you're thinking about, oh, it just makes people more confused, bitch. Then they need to learn.
Right.
There's gonna be some things that I run across that's confusing as fuck to me, and that means I need to go down in my Googles, go down in my books, go down in whatever, ask some questions, and do some deep dives and some things, so it's not confusing anymore, so I can understand it. If you're confused, that is an opportunity to fucking learn. If you are
Because
confused,
it does seem like the whole conversation of they only see us as faggots and dykes, that is like, it's reinforcing this idea that we're the only ones who ever have to do the research and the teaching, and we're the ones that have to do all the labor. If those people think that, it is incumbent upon them to figure out why they're in 1950. Like, we shouldn't have to keep doing that work for other people. So yeah,
and my behavior should not, I'm not responding to them.
exactly.
My behavior is not responding. I don't care what they think about us. I don't care in regards to people who are that far gone. Do I care if they're making laws and da 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 da? Yes, the people who are in those positions, I'm going to push back on. But just in general, no, I don't really care about a motherfucker sitting at home on his porch thinking, oh, a man is a man, a woman is a woman, da 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 da. I don't really care. You
Die,
are in a
bitch.
prison, darling. You are in a prison, even if you don't think that you are in a prison of manhood, you are
Prison,
in a
honey.
prison of womanhood. And just because I had the radical self-love to love myself, to create the
Mm,
world, create my body,
preach.
create all the shit that I got going on, because I have that radical self-love and you do not, even if you don't want to, I had the radical self-love to create the world that I want to create. If you don't see the power in that, I don't know. I don't know about you. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know what's going on.
lost.
Yeah, you're
Lost.
lost.
Yeah. This has been exactly the conversation I wanted it to be. I knew that you were going to have so much knowledge and insight about this. Um, Again, I kind of feel the same way I felt about it. I love the term dolls. I think, like we said, building up the community is building up the community. Um, and the people who don't understand it, it's time for them to jump on board and understand it. If you're listening and feeling engaged or inspired or even pissed off by this conversation, do something. Find out how you can support trans people within your own community beyond a catchy piece of merch. Because protecting the dolls means more than saying it, it means actually showing up. I've started making these visual companions to go with our episodes. And I have a further breakdown of like some other critiques that people have of the Turn doll, places you can buy the t-shirt, and some other resources. That will be posted on our Instagram. So if you guys want to check that out, please feel free. And you can always shoot us a comment or a message and let us know what you think about Protect the Dolls. Okay, Diamond, we told him beforehand I am on a trans roll this episode. So I'm going
Welcome.
right, coming in with a bang. I'm going to follow that into my main topic this week. Earlier in our Trinket, we touched on Protect the Dolls, the sloganification of transness, and how visibility can become branding, and what gets lost in that situation, that conversation. Another thing that you and I talked about that I have not been able to stop thinking about is the HBO documentary Enigma. I know that you talked about it on Marcia's Plate. Ever since I heard you guys talk about it, I have been waiting to jump in and hear some more
I even did
conversation.
a live show about it.
I know, and I missed it, and I even whatever. I'm gonna go back and watch the stream. But if you haven't seen Enigma yet, or if you haven't seen any of Diamond's streams or the other podcasts, I highly recommend going and watching it. It is thoughtful, haunting, and tender in like all the perfect ways. It explores the spectacle of transness and how being seen can shape not just your present, but your future and your legacy too, which of course goes into that conversation with the Trinket. Again, I really loved it. I have known about Amanda Lear since I was a kid. She was one of those people for me that I was like, oh, a trans person. Oh, she was a man. I can't believe what was like. Just as a kid, I was like, wow, how cool of her. And the way that I was introduced to Amanda Lear was as Salvador Dali's muse. And I always heard that she was his quote unquote greatest creation because he was like obsessed with trans bodies. And in my research, actually, now I have not found that that was true, but I always heard before that Dali kind of made Amanda in his image, kind of what he thought the perfect trans woman would look like and what they would be as kind of an art project. But again, I've always known about Amanda. So just seeing her, hearing about her life and the myths around her life was so exciting. And to see her in that position at the end of the documentary, no spoilers, but where she's, you know, on the verge of almost finally saying it. And you see this just lifetime of weight on her shoulders, but also this lifetime of safety that she's had. It's beautiful. I loved it. And then of course, outside of Amanda, Enigma also talks about April Ashley and her story. And it talks about her and Amanda both working at Le Carrousel in Paris. I'm not good at French, so pretend that was a French accent, okay? You know, so much of trans history in the 20th century and beyond is glamorous, but often complicated. So this is a really highlighted piece of that for me. Amanda and April are two examples of trans women that have shaped fashion and culture, who have dared to show us a vision of femininity that was bolder, stranger, and more honest than anything the mainstream could imagine. And yet, time and time again, they're erased, sometimes forgotten, or often deliberately excluded, or often mythologized into something easier to digest. I wanted to look at other women outside of April and Amanda who had navigated this spectacle of transness throughout their public life, whether they had been forcibly outed, whether they were out young, or whether they never came out. I just wanted to look at some other women and tell their stories and, you know, highlight them a little bit. So, again, there is a companion piece to this topic on our Instagram. A bunch of pictures of all of these women, the things I'm going to kind of talk about. Please check it out. I had so much fun making those. April Ashley, she is one of the women featured in the documentary. She was a British model and actress, and she was a frequent muse of photographer David Bailey, and she showed up in Vogue quite a bit in the UK. She was one of the first people in the UK to undergo gender affirming surgery, and she was both a trailblazer in fashion and trans visibility, obviously. She unfortunately paid dearly for it because she was outed by a friend in a British tabloid. And that act actually destroyed her modeling and acting career. She was never able to get jobs again. And then in 1970, her marriage was annulled on the basis that she was legally male. And that ruling actually set back trans rights in the UK for decades. Next is Amanda Lear, again, the other woman covered in the documentary. Amanda Lear is a French singer, painter, model, TV host, enigmatic fashion icon whose life is steeped in reinvention, mystery, and whispers of dollhood, though she's never publicly confirmed or denied it. That ambiguity tends to make her legacy as a possible trans muse both powerful and complicated. She, unconfirmed, worked at Le Carousel in Paris with the name Pique d'Oslo. And then eventually she rose to fame in the 60s as, like we talked about, Salvador Dali's muse. She did modeling for Paco Rabanne, Mary Quant, Ossie Clark, and then ended up becoming a disco singer later in her life. She has challenged gender norms long before it was fashionable, and she's fed this mystery of whether or not she's trans with a theatrical flair, and she's never really broke character, which might be the whole point of her act. Like I said, those two are covered in the documentary. Couple more. Two of these women I had heard of before. One of them I had not. So next on the list is Candy Darling. Diamond, I'm sure you are familiar with Candy Darling. Candy was a trans actress and Warhol superstar in the 60s and early 70s before she passed away. She embodied glamour and tragedy of being visibly trans in a world that was not ready to embrace her at all. She was part of Warhol's inner circle and starred in a lot of his movies. But aside from her charisma and talent, she was usually, no, that's not how I want to say that. Although, despite her charisma and talent, she was often denied mainstream roles because producers learned she was trans and they were like, no, ma'am, it's done. She longed to be seen as more than a freak, in her words. And even in avant-garde spaces that celebrated her, her transness was often treated as a spectacle, even by Warhol and his friends. She once said she dreamed of being taken seriously as a leading lady, but unfortunately died with that dream unrealized.
I don't like anything that looks too set. I like things a little winged and things that move. I think things that move are beautiful. Yeah. Like your bust, it moves. Nice. Because you don't wear a bra. Do you have a bra? Yeah. It still moves.
Freezing, it won't move because I want to get silicone shots. Like I want to be really big.
Oh, don't. You shouldn't.
No, like now I'm in proportion, and I want to be, a little out of proportion.
Oh, don't. Statues in Greece.
Yeah.
When they, all those beautiful statues, they don't have big tits like a cow.
Another element of Candy Darling's experience is, and it goes back to what you were talking about in regards to Amanda Lear and your impression of her being kind of his creation.
Mm-hmm.
But that is him creating, him being the tastemaker, even though she was already herself before she even met him. And he just brought her to a spotlight, a difference
Mm-hmm.
in the artistry world. And I think if you pay attention, because the theme of this is that we're talking about trans women who are people's muses. If you pay attention to the people that we are naming, they were already themselves. They were already creating a name. They were already the artists that they are. And so even when we think about Candy Darling and Warhol, while Warhol, because he was a man and an artist at the time, was being kind of being seen as this big art guy, this tastemaker. I'm the one who makes things cool.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why he has the name. That's why the idea Warhol superstar.
Mm-hmm.
That's centering him as the tastemaker, even
For
though
sure.
people were already themselves. And so not only because of their brilliance and their shining bright and in regards to who they are. Remember, these people came from small towns, and most of them came from small towns and started to live their truth in the big city. And
Completely alone, no family, no
no
anything.
family, no nothing.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about her being a pioneer in her and Hollywood Lawn. Hollywood is
Mm-hmm.
also one of the also one of the trans women who would be considered a Warhol superstar. These people were already themselves. He just kind of just brought them along because that's what cultural vultures do. And so I wanted to kind of point out that these women were kind of pioneers in trans visibility, inspiring songs by the Rolling Stones, songs by Lou Reed. And I want to name some of the songs so that you can go listen to them.
Oh, for sure.
Candy Says by the Velvet Underground is about Candy, darling. The Citadel by the Rolling Stones mentions Candy and Holly. Lola by the Kinks was about Candy. And Candy Darling, the song called Candy Darling by St. Vincent. And Walk on the Wild Side by Lou Reed
Hmm.
was all inspired by Candy and Holly Long. Lou Reed, while we're talking about muses and people that infected his life and that kind of creeped into his music, Candy Darling and Holly Woodlawn was one of those people. The person that really was inspiring him was his girlfriend, trans girlfriend, Rachel Humphreys.
Hmm.
And in the 70s, Rachel was his muse and was dating him, the popular musician, in 1973 to 1978. And it was open. Like he was traveling with her. She was on the cover of his albums. She
Oh,
inspired
period.
lyrics, songs, artwork. Notably, she appeared on the cover of his 1977 Best of Lou Reed album, where she has on these glasses and she just is this beautiful woman on there. And so it's his album called Coney Island Baby. And he has a song where he's talking about her in there. Crazy Feelings is him describing meeting her for the first time and it being love at first sight. So the sad part is the press and the media talk so much shit about her, and he didn't want her to get a sex change. He didn't want her to
Oh,
go.
he loved the candy cane.
He loved the things. But because she was a binary trans woman who wanted that kind of surgery, she went ahead and went and got the surgery. And so it tipped it shifted, not tipped it, shifted their relationship. And so while they were in a relationship, the press just gave them hell, and he was just unapologetically like, "This is my girl, fuck y'all."
Wow.
And people, all the trans people who were around, is a part of allowing him to have that courage. Like all these trans people around that are kind of just being sickening, the Amanda Lear,
Mhm.
the Candy Darlings, and you know the people who were coming up in the 70s and doing their stuff. They gave him the courage to be able to do this, and they laid the path for him to be like, "This is my girlfriend. I don't care what y'all gonna say." When they broke up years later, one of the reporters came after she had died, kind of confronted
The
Lou.
girlfriend.
No, no, no. After Rachel died. So
Okay.
Rachel died in January of 1990 at the
Hmm.
age of 37 in Manhattan. Although her official cause of death is unknown, she died in the St. Clair Hospital, which was specialized in helping people with AIDS, during
Oh,
the
okay.
AIDS epidemic. And she was
Okay.
also buried at Potter Field at Hart Island. And
Mhm.
if you watched Pose, you know Hart Island is where they were burying people who was HIV positive because
Mhm.
of all the fucking horrible stigma around HIV in that time. And so she died, and that reporter had seen her before she died, and she was all gaunt because
Oh.
she was skinny and not looking like herself, and it was all crazy. So when he saw Lou Reed years later, because Lou Reed went on to be this rocker, this
Hmm.
superstar rocker. He was a superstar at that time, but went on with his career, leaving this trans woman, this trans woman of color. She was a Latinx girl. She leaving her behind, and then her life just went down the drain, and she died
Hmm.
obscure at 37. And he brought her up in front of Lou. This is years after they break up. Brought her up in front of Lou, and Lou said, you don't think I remember how the fuck you treated her? Like, you gave us hell while I was with her, making our relationship even more, making our relationship that was already having our own issues because we was on drugs and we were just having fun.
Right.
But because of her identity, you were making it worse. So if you think that I'm just gonna sit here and let you talk negatively about her or bring her up like a gotcha moment, nigga, fuck you. He didn't say that, but he was like, fuck you. Like that was my girl at the time. And even though we not together and I went through that whole little moment, fuck you.
Yeah.
Like, don't bring her the fuck up, not because I'm ashamed of it, but because you didn't respect her when she alive and you're not respecting me now. So get out of here. Get out of here. So he had a whole little moment with him about disrespecting her after her death, even though there was some problematic because he was saying, I'm not a faggot no more.
Yeah.
In regards to that. So it was a
different time.
A story, different time. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I wanted to bring her up because she too, Rachel Humphreys, was his muse, was Lou Reed's rock star, punk rocker, blah, 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 blah. I don't know if he was punk rock, but definitely rock and roll of the 70s and 80s. He was in love with a trans woman, and she was his muse at the time.
It's really nice to hear a story from that time period of, I mean, it didn't end under happy circumstances, but of a cis man claiming a trans woman openly and proudly like that. I mean, sometimes that's even hard to find today, unfortunately. And even in these women that we're talking about, like I said, April Ashley ended up getting divorced, but her husband actually knew she was trans before they got married, but then basically decided once he didn't want to be married anymore to like fan the flames of her being trans and say, oh, well, I want the marriage annulled because she is actually a man. And I was fooled, even though he wasn't. And his lion ass.
He was a cross-dresser. He was trying to get a girl.
He just wanted to wear the panties. That's really all it was at the end of the day. And because of that, he stopped trans people from having, all kinds of rights in the UK just because of that. So fuck him and good on Lou Reed.
Nah, fuck him too, because he was being an asshole after. It was just good that he called that.
Good for that one little thing. You ate that one little thing.
You ate that one little thing.
The next woman I want to talk about is someone that we are both very well aware of and we've talked about many times. That is Tracey Norman, or Tracey Africa Norman. She is a pioneering African-American model and one of the first Black trans women to find mainstream modeling success, all while living stealth. So her story is a little bit different. She was living stealth at the time and then was outed against her will. April Ashley was also outed in the press, as most of these women were, but in their private lives, they were already living out and proud. I don't believe that was the case for Tracey. I think she was completely stealth from what I can tell. So she became this big successful model, all while being stealth. She was discovered by Irving Penn, and she graced the runway, pages of Essence, and became the face of Clairol's Born Beautiful color line, a campaign that she held for 6 years. But she lived like a spy, never changing in front of other models, always watching her back. In the early 1980s, she was allegedly outed during a shoot for Essence, and her career ended overnight. She later found refuge in the ballroom scene and underground fashion circuits until 2015, when New York Magazine brought her story back into the limelight, and Clairol actually welcomed her back, this time as an openly trans woman. Again, Tracey is someone who I've heard about and known about for years. Her story is so, talk about glamorous and tragic with her being outed. And then the rebirth of her coming back and being able to stand in her power and her truth and still be a badass model.
Yeah, one of the women who, when she was outed, is one of our Black cultural icons, Susan Taylor. I want Susan Taylor to talk about her kicking Tracey Africa off that fucking shoot. When her tea came out and she was on a photo shoot, I want Susan Taylor to atone and talk why. It's not necessarily why, but I want her to talk about it. She has not.
Just the context. Yeah.
Just for her context and her perspective. I know why. I know why it's transphobic. I know what time we were in. I know I don't really need to know why, but I need her to acknowledge it because that is a stain on her career. And she has been uplifted as this amazing, iconic, she was the editor-in-chief of Essence magazine.
Right.
And so
was she editor-in-chief at the time?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, no.
That's
she was one of the something. She was something. No. She was the person who's running the shoots.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so when they found out that she was trans, it was her who was running the shoot that said, "You got to go. You got to get out of here." And it spiraled into her not being able to be booked. It spiraled to her whole career being over. And so I want that conversation. I want to hear her explanation of and an apology. I want to hear. I know it ain't got nothing to do with me, but as a trans woman, I want to hear it.
So I was on the set of a Black publication, and things were going very well, and everybody was excited in what I was doing in front of the camera. Then suddenly, someone came into the door. Now, when I'm in front of the camera and a client tells me what they want from me, I normally have tunnel vision. So it's foggy to the left of me and to the right of me. And so when this person came through the door, he came on the left side, and then he called the editor of the magazine over to him, and they started conversating. And I lost concentration because that side of the room felt very negative to me for some reason. And the photographer noticed that I was losing concentration, so he asked me to rest. So when I was gathering my thoughts and loosening my shoulders and getting out of the posing, I happened to just glance over to the left side and see who Susan was talking to. And it was one of the hairdressers that I had worked with at the magazine beforehand. And so he proceeded to tell my truth. And what happened is that in the middle of the shoot, the editor shut the set down and sent everybody home. And the next day, literally, my work stopped because they contacted my agent, which was Zoli Management, and my work just literally stopped. I was a working model. I went on castings every day. I was going on jobs every day that they were getting for me. I was flying all over the country, but all of a sudden my work stopped overnight. And it went on for 2 weeks. I would get up every morning, call the agency, do I have a test, do I have a go-see? And they would tell me no. No one ever confronted me about this truth. They just took it for granted that this is what it is, and that we can't deal with that.
Thankfully, if we fast forward to the 1980s, Tracey Africa meets, because we're talking about these trans women being people's muses.
Right.
In 1980, Tracey Africa meets one of her now closest friends, designer Douglas says. She says that God, this is a quote from her. She says, "God sent me a friend named Douglas who slowly helped me out of the dark place, and I had shut myself because of what had happened to me. I had shut myself into a dark place and isolated myself. And together, we slowly started doing simple things again, like laughing, putting on makeup, telling my story. Suppose he become like a therapist or a friend to me, because unbeknownst to me, I had developed a major issue with trust of people. Of course, a motherfucker out of business, of course. And insecurities about who I was and who I am. But she says, however, through my friend Douglas, who was at the time in the 80s, an up and coming designer, I slowly started to get back out there in the world. And every now and again, we would venture into the clubs, because she also started to get into the ball scene and walk. They saw me. And over time, Douglas and I rebuilt my confidence back up. And in no time, he had me back out there walking in fashion, walking in his great garments, and doing photo shoots and campaign ads. Of course, she never got to be to the success that she would have if she wouldn't have got outed. But she started to really started to live her life again. So throughout the 90s, she said she supposed she would say he and I are like this dynamic undercover fashion duo working and turning out amazing images.
Oh, I love that.
With a host of African American photographers who was underground in the 90s. I was
Mm.
comfortable with him and I was comfortable with being his muse and working alongside now one of my best friends. And I thought that that was a beautiful story because sometimes there's some kind of tension between the dolls and the butch queens and
Oh yeah.
like this thing that makes it seem like we against each other, but there's too many. I know that's a lie from my own experience, but also there's so many um butch queens, and if you don't like the word butch queen, but or gay men who are in the doll's corner and who are our friends and our loved ones and our
Hmm.
chosen family. And this is just a perfect example of that. How, yeah, this the mainstream may not give a fuck about us. They might think of us as fags and dykes, but in our real world, in our real community, we love each other and we build each other up. And we don't need the spotlight. We're helping each
Hmm.
other survive. And so I just thought that was a beautiful example to share in regards to Tracy African Norman's and the relationship between Tracy African Norman and Douglas Says, the designer.
And it's also great because Tracey was able to, again, like you said, so many years of her career were stolen from her. But the fact that she was able to make this triumphant return and be so, and she was so happy, like with the designer, and she just had such a nice comeback that I think is well deserved and that we often don't see, unfortunately. I do have one last one that I saved for last for two reasons. Number one, because I had actually never heard of this model before, and also because she is so Amanda Lear also did some Playboy shoots and she's had the body out in the pages. But this next model, Roberta Close, she's a Brazilian trans icon and one of the first transgender supermodels to achieve international fame. In 1984, Roberta became the first trans woman to pose for Playboy Brazil, and the issue sold out instantly. She became a national sensation and was seen as the epitome of beauty and glamour. I went and looked at the Playboy Brazil shoot that she was in. I mean, body. She's so stunning and gorgeous, and not to feed into the whole doll of it all, but the fantasy is real. She's amazing. Pussy, 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 titty, titty, titty. Um, I have some pictures. I can't put them on Instagram, unfortunately, but I have some pictures of her time in the skin rags, in the companion piece, and she is just a hottie.
In case you are listening to this in audio form, this is Roberta Close on a talk show being interviewed by a guy. I don't know his name, but yeah.
E já trazendo esse super LP, né, Roberto? Olha aí.
Meu mix que eu gravei
Tá bonito esse LP aqui,
no
olha
ano
aí.
passado, mas eu tive que sair, meu sentado do Brasil, tô voltando e trabalhando ainda disco esse ano de 1990.
Ô, Roberto, você sempre disse o seguinte, desde de garota, desde pequeno, você sentia realmente que o seu lado feminino era muito mais forte e tinha tudo pra ver como mulher.
Dá pra notar, né?
É verdade?
Fantástico.
É verdade. Agora, parece que a única coisa que poderia ter qualquer conotação do lado masculino não tem mais agora. Você operou pra valer?
É o seguinte, eu sou da opinião, se a ciência e a medicina está super avançada e você pode recorrer a ela para esse tipo de coisa, eu optei por recorrer, por ficar do lado das mulheres, que é o lado que eu me posicionei a minha vida desde criança. Então eu me posiciono como uma mulher perante a sociedade e perante o meu público e minha vida particular também.
After she became this big Playboy model, she ended up modeling for top designers in Brazil and Europe and was often compared to Cindy Crawford, both in looks and stardom. She does look very similar to Cindy Crawford. To me, she looks better, but they're very similar. Roberta is one of those trans women who she actually was openly trans in her youth. And then as she got older, tabloids weaponized her transness and were repeatedly outing her and dissecting her in the media, which led to her enduring invasive scrutiny, and that made her relationship with fame both iconic and painful. From what I can tell, she now does some kind of TV hosting, and she's a little bit older, so she's not out quite as much, but she's still out and about. Again, I just wanted to bring Roberta up because the body in the 70s and 80s for a trans woman and posting in Playboy Brazil, like that's fucking badass. So good on Roberta.
I wanted to kind of go out of the box because a lot of the times when we're talking about people's muse, and I think this is because how patriarchy works and all kind of stuff, it's usually men who are the artists, and then the trans women are like the muses. And so I wanted to find some people who were not men, and so I found one. And so I found one, and there's a female artist named Gerda Wegener, who was a famous painter, and she painted her wife, Lili Elbe. Lili Elbe, if you don't know, she is a Danish painter herself, and she's a trans woman, one of the earliest
Oh my gosh.
recipients of the gender affirming surgery, really early on. She was one of the first known people who actually got a uterus transplant. And these are early, when we think about sci-fi, these is like early stages of surgery. People trying
I was about to say, damn, this bitch was born in the 1880s. Like, we're talking about primitive.
Yes, we're talking about Gilded Age born cunt.
Gilded Age surge.
Yeah, it is. It was an attempt to achieve pregnancy, and of course, she died due to the subsequent complications. So this is somebody who laid the foundation, was the guinea pigs of these early surgeries. And if you haven't seen the film about her life is called The Danish Girl, played problematically by...
Oh my God.
Yes.
You know that. Yes, by Eddie Redmayne, right?
Yes, Eddie Redmayne.
Oh, okay.
Of course, he's a cis man playing a character, but this is, this was created before we had our woke moments where we know that trans people should be playing trans people. But it was an amazing movie. Definitely had Oscar buzz or whatever.
For sure.
It was released in 2015. Remember, this was where we was about to do the peak. Mm-hmm. And it also was an opera that was created in 2023 about her life called Lili Elbe, composed by Tobias Picker. And so when he was he was married to Gerda. And she helped him become the woman that he is. So she lived her truth because her wife was supportive and her wife was an artist. So she was also her muse. And so this is some of Greta's art. Yes, this is her painting of her wife. She was an artist in the Art Deco era of art and painting. So, Art Deco. And so that Nouveau...
Wow, I love that.
Yes, so fire. I thought that was amazing and really inspiring because, this doesn't feel as exploitative. This was my partner who I allowed to love them regardless of their transition. And we're talking about early 1900s. This is not when people have had the education. Mm-hmm. This is when she, this is way soon where this woman said
they were on the frontier.
They were on the frontier, particularly in science, in surgery, and in relationship. Husband, and they're trying to transition. I've seen their softness if you watch the movie Danish Girl, and I want them to be free and do their things. Of course, she ended up getting her marriage annulled because she at the time ended up becoming... she started to live her womanhood, so she wanted to experience life outside of her marriage. So she ended up getting the marriage annulled because of the situation. But when they were in love and they were in the midst of their relationship, she accepted her and painted her, and she was her muse.
So Diane and I have just talked about a very small sampling of stories of trans women from the last 100 or a little over 100 years. Who have led public lives in art and fashion and who have had to reckon with the realities of being revered but erased. Their influence spans decades, from the opulence of vintage fashion houses to the raw brilliance of the underground ballroom scene. Trans women, particularly Black and brown trans women, are always at the scene of beauty and ingenuity. Their fingerprints are everywhere, but their names rarely echo outside of trans circles. I mean, some of the women that we talked about today, I had never even heard of. Most of these women were outed at great cost to their professional and personal lives. it's obvious to us why some people would choose stealth in terms of like Amanda and Tracey. People choose stealth because of safety, career survival, and the right to a private life if you're someone who's in the public eye. Many people actually still make that choice today, as we know, in a world where our acceptance and safety still feels so fragile. And then there's someone like Amanda Lear, a woman who swerved the spotlight just enough to keep her truth private. She's weathered decades of rumors and transvestigation, one of my favorite terms, choosing silence over spectacle. That mystique is what makes her iconic, but it also begs a deeper question. And this is really where I wanted to pick your mind, Diamond. What do we think happens to the public legacy of trans women when they choose stealth? This is kind of the heart of Enigma, but I wanted us to talk about it a little bit more. How do we, as a trans community, look up to these people? Do we, especially with someone like Amanda, it's like, do we claim her as part of our movement, as part of our success? Or do we honor her wish to live stealth and not include her in that trans history? What happens when their legacy is stealth because visibility was never even safe to begin with? For someone like Tracey in the circles that she was moving in when she was younger, for someone like
Bambi,
Ashley.
Bambi was in the film.
Bambi. Oh, yes. Okay. I have some more pictures of the girls, Bambi, Cosinelle. I was obsessed with that whole thing. There's some more information on them in the companion piece too. I swear I'm not going to mention it again, but there's more stuff on them there. So I guess my question is, in terms of this transness and public life, do we think that stealth is protecting these people? Obviously it is. But is it really just making it easier for history to erase them and what they've contributed to the trans movement? And then does someone like Amanda owe us an explanation? Does she need to come out? Does she owe the younger people, the younger generations, her story? Or is us expecting her to come out part of the problem? Are we reinforcing this concept of, if you're a trans person, kind of like I was talking about earlier, if you're a trans person, does your life automatically have to become about being a trans icon? I wanted to hear what you thought about those topics, because you are a trans woman in public life. I mean, your public life kind of revolves around activism and awareness, so it would not make much sense for you to be stealth, but I'm sure in your life you've had to kind of play with these, what it means to be stealth and how that, you know, affects your legacy, your how people look up to you, especially in the trans community. And really that question of, does she owe it to us? What do you think?
That is a complicated question.
Yeah, I wanted us to be here for about another 3 hours answering that.
My initial reaction is, motherfuckers don't owe you nothing.
Right.
Owe you nothing. We get to live our life on our own terms, so they don't owe you anything. And and I can't say me personally that I will respect you, because there are people, especially somebody like Amanda.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
There are people who laid the foundation and help you to get to who you are, that helped you to get who you are, where you are, and for you to just deny them in this time. I know why you were stealth in the 70s. You wouldn't even reach the peak that you peaked if you hadn't been stealth. I get it, but we're in 2025. There's no way that you couldn't have came out on that documentary. There's no reason for you not to.
She exists because of them.
Yes.
And to now, like you're saying, at 70, 80 years old, in our current climate, to pretend that you don't even know them, like we don't have these pictures, that we don't have this whole documented story, it just feels
disrespectful.
Disrespectful, yeah, very.
To me, it feels disrespectful, and it feels like you are you're shitting on them. And you're proud to talk about this fucking tranny chaser, Salvador Dali. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, if we want to keep
Yes.
it fucking real, these motherfuckers.
You want to tiptoe into it.
Right. If you want to
Right.
keep it fucking real, these are fucking tranny chasers that are objectifying you and fucking seeing you as a fucking weird, freak, sensational thing and using that to prop themselves up as the artist. Not saying that, you know, you didn't benefit from that, but
what did you have to give up for that? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right. You said y'all didn't have y'all didn't have sex. Cool. All right. But you proud to proclaim your friendship with these fucking cis people, but you're not proud to proclaim your friendship with April Ashley, who set you on the path to get your pussy, who set you on the path to be you get what I'm saying? She set you on the path to fucking do this shit.
Yeah.
And you want to deny her or say you don't know her? That's fucking disrespectful, bitch. Fuck you. How dare you? I get it in the 70s, but 2025, we have laid a foundation for you to be safe, and your career is over.
Right. Honestly, even in the last 20 years, because there has always been so much conversation about Amanda's gender identity, I think had she come out in the early 2000s, you know what I mean? Like, especially in Europe, they seem to be a little bit more accepting of trans and queer bodies in art and fashion, quicker than we were. So yeah, I just feel like, yeah, it's crazy. It's so crazy that still at your big age, it just would open up so many doors. I feel like, what are you gaining now? What are you gaining?
Right. It's no point now. So, but then, you know, that's my perspective. I'm you know, I'm somebody that's proud of being trans. I know that there's a lot of girls from back there that's not proud of being trans. They just want to be the cis women that they are going into, and that's just what it is. When we think about, even in the documentary, when Bambi started talking about Capuchin, or who was the girl that said she was kind of felt like she betrayed her when she came out? Remember, Bambi was the girl who was had went and been stealth and became the teacher.
Yeah.
And then remember at the right,
was it Cosinelle?
Is it Cosinelle? It could have been her. I don't remember the girl's name, but she was saying that she feels like I betrayed her because I have come out and just said my story and wrote my book and blah, 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 blah. And she is still living her stealth life as an older woman. And she was like, that's what we were supposed to do. And I don't think she's wrong, but she's also not trying to get no credit. She's not trying to have a legacy. She's not trying to, you get what I'm saying? She's not trying to do that. She's like, I'm trying to live in my quiet life over here where I'm living it. Y'all do y'all thing. Don't put me in that shit. I respect that. But Amanda, you're talking about, you're doing documentaries. You a superstar.
Exactly.
You You can have way more impact by just admitting what the truth is. Like, come on. Like, I don't respect it, but it's not my position to, she ain't worried about my respect, but I just don't, because I've navigated, we just talked about me at work. I don't talk about my friends at work. And I do that intentionally because I've been fired 3 times for being trans and lost jobs and literally changed the trajectory of my life because I couldn't find the opportunity to work. And so because of that, I know the importance of stealthness. Luckily I passed enough to be able to do it, but that's just what I understood, what the safety factor of it. No, I was in for why I didn't tell my tea at Bath and Body Works. I was led by white women. First it was fucking Catherine, Gina, then Robin. You know, I had these I'm
having flashbacks.
These blonde white women from Texas. I didn't know how they were gonna respond and give me opportunity. I didn't know if they were gonna fucking not let me be the store manager. I didn't know how it would have led me to be able to become in my career in retail. I didn't know what it was, so I didn't talk about it and didn't discuss it. I don't know what my coworkers were discussing. Did anybody ever discuss my tea while you was there?
Never to me, no.
Yeah, nobody ever discussed my tea. I didn't allow people to discuss other people's tea.
No, not at all. Yeah.
Anytime that came up, because when I left that motherfucker, it was trans people working there, it was gay people working there. You get what I'm saying? I was intentional about bringing queer people on the job, and we had Asian people, we had Christina. I was intentional about diversifying my fucking team. So, and we were successful as fuck.
Yeah.
And so, in that regards, I just knew for me, there's no room for transphobia, homophobia, none of that fucking bullshit in my place of work. And so I chose to be stealth, to not even have that become an issue, not even having it to be a barrier. And so I understand why people choose to be stealth, but I'm also to the point where if you find it out, listen, during that time I was doing the podcast, I was doing YouTube. It wasn't like I was super hiding it to the point where, oh my God, da, 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 da. If you find it out, I don't give a fuck. But I'm going to fucking tell you sexual harassing me. If you get to talking about it in my job, bitch, I'm here to slang lotions and candles, bitch, and soaps. Why the fuck you worried about what I got between my legs?
Right. Yeah.
So I understand it, but I also feel purposeful in my transition. I feel like I have a purpose in my story. I feel like my story pushes our culture forward, and so that's why it's important to me. But that doesn't need to be purposeful to somebody else. It may not be important to them.
Does that mean for Amanda, we think she's just in it for the
her
fame?
Own glory?
Yeah. And there's something to be said about that. If she is trans, it's like live your joyful life, and that is trans resistance. Even if it's not loudly and proudly trans resistance and trans joy, we all know it is, and I feel like that's enough. Yes, I agree with you that I side-eye her for still not coming out now, especially, why are you doing this documentary? What did you think it was going to cultivate? I mean, what did you think it was going to culminate in? Did you think... I don't know. And I don't know if maybe she was planning on it and then she chickened out in the moment. But yeah, like I said, I have not been able to stop thinking about it. And then as a trans woman, these stealth is not a thing for me. I'm not passable like that. So I don't even really have to like contemplate over those things. And I'm being visibly trans in Seattle is so different than being trans even a stay over in Oregon. You know what I mean? Like it's different everywhere. So I'm interested to hear what our listeners think about this. I was going to say, do you live stealth? But you probably wouldn't. You probably wouldn't message us and say that. But I would love to hear everyone's opinions on this, and really that piece of what's the legacy? What's the impact on the legacy? Do you care? Do you want her to answer for her trans crimes, or let her live her life? As always, if you would like to jump into this conversation, you can contact us at Chasing Threads Pod on Instagram. Shoot us a comment, shoot us a DM, and Diamond and I will love to chop it up with you. I did want to remind people of our last little thing that we do here. It has a new name. It has a new version since you guys last saw us. But typically what we like to do at the end of an episode is look at some hot looks, some photo shoots, anything that's kind of caught our eye in the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, the last month, the last news cycle, if you will. So this is stuff that has kind of made us stop scrolling while we're on our phone, stuff that just made us gag, that we're living for. It seems like every time we have an episode, we talk about at least 3 same things. Cardi B eating, fashion, Mason Margiela releasing a show, and we're not talking about it, but it is currently happening that Nicki Minaj is beefing with someone else. So
our cokehead crash.
Yes. Cokehead granny. Listen, I love Nicki. Whatever. We don't have to get into Nicki, but just know if she's beefing with somebody, that means it's time for a Chasing Threads episode.
Right.
To
Yeah.
keep Cardi in the mix, I'm sure you've seen it all. She was in Paris last week for Haute Couture Week. She, I mean, as always, Cardi is that girl when it comes to fashion for me. She understands the theatrics and the glamour, and she knows how to mix in streetwear. And it's just, she has an eye. She and her stylist have such an eye. I'm obsessed with Cardi. I'm sure you saw the look that she wore to, I believe, Schiaparelli when she had the crow.
Yes. Uh,
And the videos of her like telling people to be quiet so as not to scare the crow, like just bad bitch. Like I'm obsessed with her. I don't think she had a miss last week. Everything I saw was amazing. Another Chasing Threads constant, Mason Margiela had their Haute Couture show last week as well. It was actually a debut for a new designer. It was Glenn Martin's entrance at Mason Margiela. He had been the Diesel, gorgeous. I knew that you would be into this. To me, it's giving, oh, first of all, it's giving Dune a little bit, like Dune 3, kind of. Like, we will see Zendaya in some of these pieces on the press tour. Let's just say that. But yeah, I loved every single look. I put some of my favorites on the Instagram for us. Please check those out. Have you seen the Schiaparelli show from last week? The one that Cardi was actually at?
yes, I've seen it, but it was given very much last year too.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. There weren't a ton of looks that I liked, but I love Schiaparelli as a house. So I did want to highlight some of the ones that I did like.
Wait.
Yes.
I love Schiaparelli as a house because, and she should be just as popular as Coco Chanel because she was the antithesis of Coco Chanel, who was a fucking Nazi.
Nazi.
Who was a fucking Nazi supporter, lover, dressing them fucking people. And her competition, as we taught y'all a couple of episodes back, was fucking Schiaparelli. Because we talked about Schiaparelli, and Schiaparelli was the antithesis of that. And so she should be more popular. So I love Schiaparelli as a brand and the fact that she was anti them Nazis.
I agree. The brand, the person, Elsa Schiaparelli, just in general. I also think that what I like about Daniel, I always say his name wrong, but I believe it's Daniel Roseberry, creative director there. What I love about him is he still incorporates so much of Schiaparelli's house codes into what he does. It's, aside from this year, it's always something like new and fresh, but still feels true to who Schiaparelli is, which is wonderful with brands like this. A couple other small things. I don't know if you saw Rihanna at the premiere for Smurfs. Yes, she looks so fucking cool as usual. I love seeing her little kids in the Saint Laurent outfits they were wearing as well. She just looks cool. There was a new Harper's Bazaar released for, it looks like July and August of this year. It has a shoot with Pamela Anderson that I really, really loved. Have you seen her documentary or The Last Showgirl yet? Either of those things that she's done
I haven't
recently?
watched it yet.
Me either, but I've heard they're both good. And I'm really into this whole like maturing gracefully vibe she's doing. And I just always think she has such cool style. I don't know how up to date you are with the new Superman movie. I don't give a rat's ass about Superman typically. The new Superman is fine. He looks like if you told AI to create Superman, that's who he would be. He's so gorgeous. He did a shoot for GQ. I included that. Do you know who Sonia Tucker is? There is a couple of shots of Sonia Tucker, who I suppose is a model, at the BET Awards last week. I mean,
Barbie.
She doesn't look real. Skin perfect, features perfect, hair, dress, body, insane. And lastly, I just wanted to mention my favorite editorial recently. It was for British Vogue with Doechii. The colors, the styling, the photography, all of it. I mean, it's amazing. I'm obsessed with Doechii. Her album was one of my favorite albums last year. I just think she's unstoppable and she's such a cool superstar. And I just love the colors and the vibe of the shoot. All of that stuff is on my mood board, making me feel inspired and drawing me back into the world of beautiful things. What does your mood board look like this time, Diamond?
My mood board definitely everybody you just named have been wearing it out. I
We
love
have a lot of overlap.
we do have a lot of overlap, but I was in my, because I knew we were going to talk about um these girlies from the 60s and the 70s. One of my favorite fashion eras was the 70s.
Hmm.
So Amanda Lear's looks in the 70s when she was in her peak before she was exposed, when she was the white queen of disco.
Yes.
She used to slay some looks. I sent you some pictures of some of her looks while she was, at the peak of her career. And I just thought that that look is the look, that glamour of the 70s, particularly of just the women of that era. They just was so fire. I remember one of my favorite looks in regards to like iconic beauty moments that seared in my brain. There is a group called 3 Degrees, and they did a live show of a live performance of their song called If and When. And it's basically a song talking about, baby, whenever you feel like the need to come back to me, talking to their man, whenever you feel the need and you get lonely and whatever, you done left me and I'm alone or whatever. But if and when you want to come back to me,
The
I'm
door's open.
ready.
Oh,
Ready. When I think of 70s glamour, those girls are like, I'm talking about the Dolly Parton wigs that curl and fall and the splits, the like the dream girl look
hmm.
of the 70s. I loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it. So that was on my mood board. And also I went into a deep dive of one of the fashion designers that since we were talking about muses of that, one of the actual fashion designers that used Amanda as a model and is Paco Rabanne.
Hmm.
And so I think it's relevant to now. So I want to kind of talk about it. Paco Rabanne, his impact on fashion kind of stems from his like unconventional futuristic visions of defying traditional notions of clothing. So he had like this space age look. He used innovative materials, and I think that's relevant now because we're thinking about sustainability and how
Absolutely.
to do things different in regards to making clothes that are not that still have that quality but are not harming our environment. So this is somebody who was already doing that kind of stuff and making things out of plastic and dicks and not dicks. Plastic and
Girl, drop the
disc,
website.
disc as in disc like CDs and stuff, disc. Disc and chainmail and even like aluminum foil. So I don't know if y'all remember, but La Roche put Zendaya in not the amazing Mugler Mugler robot outfit. Not
Robot.
that,
Yeah.
but there was he put her, they did a shoot that was giving honor to Danielle Luna. I don't know if y'all remember that shoot with La Roche and Zendaya, but she did a shoot honoring her, and in that shoot she had on one of Paco Rabanne's old
Oh, yeah. Those are
old
so cool.
old metal dresses from the archives. This is the original. This is Daniel Luna. Daniel Luna being the first black supermodel
Hmm.
that came out in the 60s and the 70s. And, she tragically died. This is one of her classic pictures in one of Paco Rabanne's outfit. I literally have her on my wall. And so this is one of the things as well
Oh, I
where
love that.
he's making dresses out of just unconventional things. So he was innovative. He also influenced pop culture. His designs was prominent. on the movie Barbarella with
Jane Fonda.
Jane Fonda.
Yeah.
So just that kind of two for the road, becoming kind of like these iconic symbol of futuristic style that attracted celebrities all over. Like even Jane Birkin, even Audrey Hepburn. Like these are some of the people that he dressed during his time in his peak in his career. He also embraced like this architectural approach with like because he had a background in architecture. Robin he designed things in regard with that kind of architect sensibility when he was structuring his pieces,
detailed, linear,
all that kind of stuff. And so he also, like I said, before he was, before now in the 2025s and in these new millennial 20s, we talk about advocating for sustainability, which clearly, if he was doing it in the 70s, it was before his time. He was early prominent in using recycled and reused materials, and his philosophy of doing that predated what is kind of mainstream sustainability fashion right now that is happening in the movement. Now people are coming on the bandwagon. When he was doing it, it felt futuristic. It felt like kind of almost ridiculous in a sense, but still innovative. But still like oh no, we're still gonna wear our leathers and our furs and our things. So Paco was he was famous for these things, and so I loved one of the things that in the documentary that we discussed earlier, she was talking about how she wore his metal dress and it was heavy. Amanda Lear wore his metal dress and wore the things that some of the things that that was so innovative at the time. So she talked about how amazing it was. So I wanted to just kind of showcase that, and all of he did 3 things. They called it the 12 unwearable dresses, and that you could actually wear them, but they weren't really wearable.
Yeah.
But he put them on the models, and he did this amazing thing with them. And so I sent you the picture so we can put them into the mood board. But I went down and I have some Paco Rabanne's perfume.
Ooh, that's such a cute bottle too.
It looks like a robot.
Yeah.
It smells so good. I love it. So I'm about this fashion shit, and I love him. I love I go deep dives into many fashion history, and that's one of the things how I found this fragrance, which I love. And yeah, he's still out there. The name is still out there doing a thing, so I love it.
2 things about him. Number one, in terms of the chainmail dress, you might have seen this. I know you're not really a RuPaul's Drag Race girly, but Simone, she won a couple seasons ago. Simone is another one of my favorite winners. Her entrance look on Drag Race was based around a chainmail dress, but every piece of quote unquote chainmail was a Polaroid selfie of her. And it looked so fucking cool. I'll include a picture of that as well, because it was like a direct, updated take on that vibe. I love when Drag Race brings high fashion in like that. We love to see that. And then the other thing I was going to say about him is when I was researching pictures of him and Amanda Lear, I thought he was really hot. So I don't know what that says about me, but I thought he was quite attractive.
Yeah, so that's what's the mood I'm on. I'm in my 70s vibe. I look very 80s today. But I love 70s glamour. And so that was my mood.
I have this book on 70s glamour. Let me show you. It is so fucking cool. So this is one of my favorite fashion books that I have. It's like a big coffee table book, and it literally is just straight up 70s glamour. Big old white lady on the back. But this is Liberace. So everything in here is just like iconic look. Oh my God. Candy. Candy is fucking crazy. Okay, Candy Darling. But yes, it's just so cool. Like, you would die for it. I will see if I can find another edition of it online, and I'll send it to you if I can.
I love it. That is my favorite fashion era.
And then they have like all these like movie posters from the 70s, like all kinds of stuff. Yeah, you would love this. I can't believe I opened it to Candy Darling. That was crazy.
I love it. That means we are in our universe flow.
Right place, right time. That it's all falling into place.
All
It's
in the
falling into
place.
And with that, we have finished our return episode, Diamond.
We have. Now it's up to you when we're gonna return again, as usual.
Listen, I say this every time, but truly this time, I've been texting you like kind of all week about it. I've been feeling so inspired and having so much fun, and just being able to talk to you and do this back and forth. Like, I forget how easy it is and how much fun it is. So yeah, for me, it's become a kind of therapy to like make these little companion pieces, and like I just love it. I missed this feeling of falling in love with a topic, having that voracious feeling of wanting to deep dive on it, and then like present it back to people. That's my bread and butter. So I'm so glad to be back here with you. And I will be here as often as you want me to be.
Well, make sure y'all follow us on Instagram, Chasing Thread Pod. Is that how it's going? Chasing Thread Pod. And yeah, make sure you should subscribe. And like I said on Marsha's Plate this week, because I put a feeler, little kind of a commercial on the show this week. It is going to be on our feed, so you're going to hear from us on the Marsha's Plate feed. I usually
hey y'all.
Yeah, because
Good to see y'all again.
Because Chance, I couldn't keep paying that motherfucking fee if we weren't gonna be recording. So
right.
At least in Marsha's Plate, I know the fee gonna be paid.
I get it. I'm happy to be there.
I feel like this is just extra, and I feel like the people will love it. And so yeah, make sure y'all tune in, and we will see y'all next time.
Bye guys.